be here. What a passionate speech. That was absolutely awesome. Well done, Jesse.
Okay, so I've got Max and I are going to be sitting here with you as well, Ray. So where would you like to start?
What I might do is just do a quick little intro, and then I might as well get straight into it.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear from you, Max, and it's good to hear from you, brother. It's great to see you there. I'd just like to say welcome to everybody. Hello, Paul, Jet, Stephen, and Alan, and also Victor. It's really great to see you there, mate. I just want to let you know that I've actually put you in some of my advices to refer to you, so well done. Look, I just wanted to start off and just explain a little bit about what I've done and sort of a follow-on from what we did, Max, on your show. And it's great to see that I think we've got 26,000 views already, and we've only had it on there, for 5 days? Is that right, Max?
Yes.
You've done a wonderful job. So what I'm going to do is just explain, and feel free to ask as we go on through. I'm very happy to do that. So what I'm going to do is explain it really simply, and I'm going to go through, and I've got a lot of paperwork here which I can just show you through and show you how the criminal liability issue works, how I managed to stop, or was instrumental in stopping numerous 5G installations in the country. You're probably aware that we had a big issue with TPG in Australia, where there was 900 small cells that had already been established in the country and there was also another 1,600 proposed. And what I'm about to show you is how we stopped the entire network. Okay, so that might assist you in some way. And what I'm doing is basically putting together how it's been done, how we managed to stop other towers, how we managed to stop little spot fires basically all through the country. And unfortunately it's just me, but there are other people that are trying to get involved in this. And there's been a huge groundswell at the moment, and we're starting to see some really good results occurring. So first of all, this is all about strategy, and I'd just like to explain that. And there are various things to look at with this, and we look at the criminal and civil liability behind it. What I want to explain is that the way I see it is the law is for the people, and the law is a beautiful thing if it's applied correctly. And once you see the presentation I'm about to give you, it hopefully will give you an understanding of how this goes. Now, for any lawyer to be able to do the job that's required to assist, they need evidence. And basically what this is about is to try and explain to you what is required and what steps you can take, or what people can take, before they take it to a lawyer, and gather the evidence to assist to be able to stop this. I've got a really great announcement to make, which I think, just to let you know, I've been networking with a lot of people throughout the country and throughout the world, and there's been some really amazing developments. And I don't know if anyone's heard of it before, but there's an organisation called the ECSFR, which is the Environment and Community Safety from Radiation. Now, they're established in New South Wales, but they're also becoming a very big force in Australia and also worldwide. Now, what I can announce is they're setting up a fighting fund to pay for lawyers and doctors' advices, which should be able to subsidise people who are wishing to try and take on what we're trying to set up here and explain to you how the process works. And that's something that will be set up, I understand. I just had a talk to the DCFR just before I come on with you people, and they'll explain. They're putting that up on the website soon, so that'll be able to assist, and hopefully some philanthropists and other people will be able to start donating and that sort of thing, and start getting this whole process going. Before I guess the whole issue here is about working together. And I'll just make a very quick disclaimer, if I may, typical lawyer. First of all, that this video and any associated documents that you see on this is for information only, and it's not intended to be legal advice, and you should not rely on them as such. And it's highly recommended that you seek independent legal advice as to the procedures and laws discussed in this video. The authors and the publishers accept no responsibility whatsoever for any loss or liability incurred as a result of failing to follow the recommendation aforementioned. So I have to put that little disclaimer in because it's the This is just an education video only, really, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is go through how it was done and what evidence needs to be required. I'm going to go through the step process. So first of all, if I may, I'm just going to change a few things. Now, excuse me, I'm doing this by hand, so if you have to excuse the shaking, etc. You still see everybody? Is that okay?
Yep.
Yep, good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just explain this first. So first of all, you've got to identify the source of EMR emissions or proposed emissions. Is it a tower? Is it a base station? 5G small cell, smart meter, Wi-Fi router, or other device? So that's the first step, identify. Second thing is identify the site where the emissions or proposed emissions will be radiated upon. For example, upon your home, your workplace, your school, the hospital, retirement home, public transport, etc. The third thing to do is to measure and record the distance between you and the EMR emission device and or facility. Fourth, and this is very important, folks, is identify the emitter or the proposed emitter, the installer, the public relations company that's behind it, the local council, and the landowner where the particular facility is going to be placed. So if it's a small cell facility, for example, is it on council land? Or is it a tower that's on someone's building? Is it on some private land? You need to identify and work out where that's coming from. You also need the names of involved corporations and their representative ABN and ACN numbers, and also include the names of directors of such corporations. And as I go through this talk, you'll understand why I've explained all this to you. The next one is to go in Australia, you can find your mobile communications tower on the RFNSA website. And you can see here the website to use. Type in your suburb, identify the tower, click on it and retrieve the EME report and compliance certificate. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to steer you through this if I may. I hope that my computer will let me do that. Computer's decided. Here we go. So if you can see it here, you can see here, I don't know if you can see it folks, but there's the RFNSA. I've typed in RFNSA. And all we're going to do here is we'll click on RFNSA, and you'll see here it says, welcome to the Radio Frequency National Site Archive. Now up the top you'll see a little search in there. So what we're going to do here is do upper where you live, which is Upper Mount Cravat, I believe, is that's where you are situated. And let's see if we can find the towers that are in that vicinity. Now, first of all we have to go through the silly process. Now just to explain what this site actually is, this site was set up by the telcos themselves. There's actually the Australian Mobile Telecommunications Association, which you have here. Now, here you'll see here, you've got all the different sites that are available here. Now, there is one in particular that I'd like to mention, which I believe, there's one on Barrister Street. Now, you'll notice here it says Childcare Centre. Can you see that, folks? So let's click on that and find out what this one's all about. Now, when we open this up, you'll see that this is for a childcare centre, and up on the right-hand side, you'll see there's what we call a compliance certificate and an environmental EME report. So what I'm going to do now is click on the environmental EME report, and that should pop up now. And as you can see here, it tells us exactly where the location is, the date that the report was done. You'll see a special number here called an RFNSA site number. And you go down and you have a look at it. It gives you an example of how much radiation is coming, how many metres away from the site. You understand this thing is getting built on the childcare centre itself. And what I want you to have a look at, if you have a look down, if we go further, it will tell us who the providers are that are going to do it. You can see quite clearly here that we have 5G. You can see what's existing. So 5G is obviously in this category, and what they're proposing to install. Now, what's really important about this, folks, is when you look at this, look at how many systems are already in place on that childcare centre. And then look at how many more they're placing on there. I counted them, there's 21. 21 separate devices that they're going to emit microradiation in environs to the school. Now, if you have a look at it, you'll go down a bit further and you'll see the electric field that's coming from it, the power density, etc. Now, I'm not an expert at this, and that's why I rely on experts to provide this so it can be provided in court. People like Vic Leach, for example, who's with here today, and other scientists out there can certainly interpret all this and put reports together to assist people like myself to start propagating and getting everything ready for litigation. Okay, so that's basically what's there. Now, what's interesting is they haven't put down the location. Normally on here you'll see schools or whatever. In this case, they didn't even put the childcare centre because they don't need to, because it's clearly going to be placed on the childcare centre itself. So that's what's happening in your own neighbourhood, folks. And I think that sort of gives you a bit of an indication of what you need to do to start with, is to find out and identify exactly where this tower is or what's around you. And if you type in your suburb, you can even see all the other towers, etc. Now, under the code, they have to actually put anything that they're going to install on that site, so it sort of assists you. If they haven't done that and they're starting to put something up, we can then make complaints to ACMA, which is the Australian Communication Media Authority. So there are certain things that you can do, but you really need to start to look into that site and have a bit of a look around to see what's going on. Now, what I'm explaining here to everybody is that how this works is what's happened is we've actually worked out this thing where you don't have to go to court. Most of the stuff that revolves around them removing themselves as emitters, they've actually stopped without going to court, because it's the numbers to the advice I've put together and the doctor's reports that I'm going to talk about, etc., that stops them, because they're too scared to take it to court. So that's probably the best thing to explain to you at this stage. But if they don't hear what we're talking about, we also have the processes and have everything set up ready for court action. So that's really what this is about. All right, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to now explain the next step, which will be, so you have to excuse the way I'm doing this. So, okay, so you have to look at this one and sort this out. You need to say, first of all, is it an existing installation? If yes, most likely it's already been approved by council, or in the alternative, it did not require development approval in the first place. So just contact the council to confirm. Now, is it a proposed installation? Does it require development approval? Contact council again. Development approval is required. Ask the council for an expiry date that any objection submissions are to be submitted by. Now, sometimes the emitter or proposed emitter will advertise to the public requesting submissions inclusive of deadlines concerning the installation as part of an industry public consultation process. Verify very quickly whether or not their consultation process forms part of a legitimate council development application or not. Now, I'm going to explain this to you, that how it works. I'm just sorry about this. How it works is this: is that it doesn't matter if they've already established this thing or they're about to establish it. Okay, folks, what I'm about to show you applies in both cases. So you can literally put them on notice, and that's what this is all about, putting the either the council, the landowner, the corporations, etc. behind on notice that this thing could possibly harm, etc., through doctors' advices, and that's enough to start the process of putting evidence out there ready to start litigation. So that's what this is about. Right, I'll keep going. Now the next step is, if the emitter or the proposed emitter has been in contact with you via letter, notice, etc., collate all the correspondence, including all correspondence you may have sent to the emitter also. Now that's crucial, because we need to, and as a lawyer, we need to know exactly what you've been sending to them and what they've been telling you. And it's amazing how many times I've caught up telcos by giving the wrong advice, etc., and so on. Now, once you've done that, now this is the crucial part. Obtain a medical opinion or report as to whether or not the EMR emissions or proposed emissions are or could pose a risk of harm to your health. Now, if risk of harm to health is advised, then request that the medical practitioner advise on recommendations as to what needs to be done to remedy the situation. Now, examples of recommendations might be that you are not exposed to EMR emissions from the tower or device, etc. To use cable instead of Wi-Fi, turn routers off, etc. Now, you can see I've put down a couple of links here. To assist you, may be able to provide a medical practitioner with a link to the bioinitiative report, and that's been updated since 2017. And in that report, there are thousands of peer-reviewed documents saying that this stuff causes harm. Okay, all by doctors, scientists, etc. Put all these reports together. It's an absolutely huge document, the bioinitiative report. I think it's got about 20,000 studies in there. So that just gives you an indication of how many studies are actually out there that say, hey, this stuff is not good for you. And then also look at the following link for Physicians for Safe Technology called 5G Mobile Communications, and you'll see there's a link there called mdsafe.org, and that's actually an organisation set up by doctors themselves, medical doctors, who are very concerned about electromagnetic radiation, okay? And you can also ask your doctor to refer you to a specialist medical practitioner who consults EMR patients on a regular basis. And there's not that many in Australia, but we can certainly point you in the right direction to get that. And I'm going to show you some samples of medical advices that have been given, and that might help you and assist you in some way. And an even better one that has appeared in either a court or tribunal on EMR issues. And I tend to use those doctors because they are just absolutely brilliant in what they do. Your doctor or your lawyer may be able to refer you to a medical specialist if needed. So that's very, very important as that step. Now, this is another thing that you could do. This is sort of like secondary evidence or material that you can get. So if you've got an existing installation, such as a tower that's already there, obtain witnesses who have mobile cell or internet coverage, i.e. when they visit your home, and do the witnesses have reception from their carrier. Now, the best way to explain this, when you go into court, you want to explain things in a simple way that a judge could understand quite reasonably and simply. Now, if a judge or, in some cases, a jury in a criminal matter, everybody knows if you get reception on your mobile phone, then you're getting irradiated by electromagnetic radiation. Does that make sense, folks? So make sure you get a witness that's independent of you. It's got to be, don't use your own phone if you've got one, because that can open up a whole legal can of worms. Get somebody that's outside of your home who actually has coverage from a certain provider, and if they've got bars in your home on their phone, then we'll do what's called, tell your lawyer, and we'll draft up what's called an affidavit and present evidence in that form. Now, as I said in the bottom there, you can see that it indicates that your home is irradiated by the carrier, and that's what I mentioned about the affidavit. Okay. Now, another thing you can do is contact a building biologist to conduct a report as the EMR emission in your home. Now, I can show you some reports later. Now, these reports are really, really good because what it shows and establishes is I'll try and put this back onto myself. So it's oops, sorry about this. Yeah, so what it establishes is it gives you a pre-indication of what the EMR emissions are in your home, okay? Now, when you get if they put the tower up after that, then you do another study, and we can then use those two studies to indicate that there is a clear difference in the EMR emissions into your home. So that's basically what we do with that one, okay? Now, the next thing that you'll need to do is this one. Now, this is important as well, folks, because you're actually setting up ready for litigation in the future. So obtain quotes for shielding purposes, such as shielding mesh, clothing, shielding paint, etc., to shield not only your person, your house, inclusive of your land, etc. Okay, so a building biologist should be able to assist in this regard. So you get a quote, okay, how much is it going to cost to not only shield my home, my house, but also my land? Because I want to go out the backyard and put clothes up. And you'll be surprised how much money that's going to cost. And then once you've got a quote, I can use that quote as a sort of a nudge to the telcos to say, look, if you keep going with this, we're going to see compensation in the form of shielding. Okay, so this is to set you up and get everything ready for future litigation. All right, now if you have the funds, you can also obtain an independent radiation dosimetry report as to radiation levels emitted from the device or facility, and the SAR, which is specific absorption rate levels concerning of you or your children's bodies, okay? So I suggest you look on the internet to see what that is all about, but there are independent dosimetry people that I can recommend, and other lawyers can recommend too, okay? And once you've done that, upload all the documents, as mentioned above, and then what you do then is you engage a lawyer, and upon engagement, on send the said evidence and documents to that lawyer, okay? And now I'm going to go and explain how this all works, okay? Why we do all that, all right? And how I've done it in the past and how it's worked, okay? So now we're going to talk about, now you guys are in Queensland. Now, and I'm going to show you something I did quite a while back, which was in the Magistrates Court in Queensland. And you've probably heard of piece of good behaviour orders before, and this is exactly where we go, all right? And I'm going to show you how this works, okay? I'm going to show you the document, and we'll go through it step by step, so you'll understand. Now this is actually a document that was filed in court. I appeared with a SILK, which is the Senior Counsel, and this particular complaint I'm about to show you was also settled by a retired judge from the Supreme Court of Queensland, and he said that if this was placed in his court, he would have granted the complaint and the restraint against the telcos. Okay, so whenever I do something, I always make sure I get seeing or approval, and always make sure I double check before we go ahead. So that's what this is about. All right, so I'm going to now show you the document. So here it is. It's called a complaint. You can see I've redacted. Excuse the redaction way I've done it. But you can see here it was filed in 2016 in the Brisbane courts. And you can see it's a complaint. It's a piece of good behaviour order. And if you have a look in here, it talks about, and these are pro formas. I didn't put this in. This is already in the actual form in the complaint. It talks about to assault. You can get a piece of good behaviour order, which is a restraint order against people and corporations if they do any of these things. And this is what I'm going to talk about right now, okay? So let's have a little talk about what the grounds of this particular complaint were. Now, you can see here, I've said here that the defendant is a corporation and is classed as a person under Section 1 of the Criminal Code, 1899 Queensland, and also Section 36 of the Acts Interpretation Act, Queensland. A piece of good behaviour order was made in favour of the corporation, and you can see here there's a corporation that actually had a restraining order put out against them, and this is the case, which was a Queensland case, which we used to back up this. And it happened when we appeared in court on this particular matter. They didn't believe us, and we said, well, hang on, this case applies, okay? Now, here you can see here, we talk about that I became aware that the defendant, in this case was a telco, with another telco, another company, a landowner, omitted all their names, that they formed a common intention in conjunction with each other to prosecute a common purpose to install and operate a mobile telecommunication facility known as blah, 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 and situated at, okay, and are on all premises owned by such and such a company. You can see here I've collectively called it a joint enterprise. Now what I'm going to try and explain to you is I'm going to show you the law here, and this is offences committed in prosecution of a common purpose. Now when two or more persons form a common intention to prosecute an unlawful purpose in conjunction with one another, and in the prosecution of such purpose, an offence is committed of such a nature that its commission was a probable consequence of the prosecution of such purpose, each of them is deemed to have committed the offence. So you're probably thinking, well, why is Ray going down that road? Now I'm going to go back to the complaint, and you'll see at the top of it, it says to assault or do any bodily injury to the complainant or to any person under the care of charge of the complainant. Okay? Now, let's have a talk about this. So this is a pro forma. This is something I didn't put in. This is already in the complaint. So let's talk about assault, shall we? Now, let's have a look at this. Now, Definition of assault, folks, and this is Queensland law, okay? And this comes from the Carter's Criminal Law, which is a very good document for Queensland law. And you can see here there's a definition of assault. Now let's have a little read of that. A person who strikes, touches, or moves, or otherwise applies force of any kind to the person of another, either directly or indirectly, without the other person's consent, or with the other person's consent if the consent is obtained by fraud, or by any bodily act or gesture, attempts or threatens. You see that there, folks? It doesn't say, not just an attempt, it can also be a threat to apply force, and that's the key here, folks. To apply force of any kind to the person of another without the other person's consent. Under such circumstances, that the person making the attempt or threat has actually or apparently a present ability to effect the person's purpose, is said to assault that other person, and the act is called an assault. Now, you can see here, the definition of applied force includes the case of applying heat, light, and there it is, folks, electrical force, gas, odour, or any other substance or thing, whatever, any other substance or thing. So if they turn around and say, well, it's not electrical force, well, hang on, it's technically light, and Victor, you would agree with that, would you not? That's actually light as well? Yes. Okay, so we've got electrical force, light, and we also have or any other substance. So there's no hiding from the fact that electromagnetic radiation encompasses under this particular provision. Or thing whatever if applied in such a degree as to cause injury or personal discomfort. Now look at this, folks, it's not the injury that we're worried about, it's this one here. If you have personal discomfort because of the fear that you're going to be irradiated by electromagnetic radiation, then this applies. Okay? Okay, do you understand that? Alright. Now, how a piece of good behaviour, let's go back to this complaint. Okay? How a piece of good behaviour order works is this. We now have under the same code, this is the Queensland Criminal Code, and the Queensland Criminal Code is probably the best code, and you're very lucky folks in Queensland that have the Queensland Criminal Code, because it's the best code in Australia, as far as I'm concerned, because it applies all the common law and put it and codified it. You'll find that New South Wales, for example, they haven't really got a code and they have to rely on all the common law. And if you have a look behind me, you'll see I've got a lot of books here, and all of these books are law cases. That's the common law. So in effect, what the Queensland, lovely Queenslanders have done is put all of this case law into a code, and basically it applies pretty much Australia-wide, and you find that Queensland is followed everywhere. So let's have a look at this. Threatening violence under Section 785. Any person with intent to intimidate or annoy any person, here we go, intimidate, okay, by words or conduct threatens to enter or damage a dwelling or other premises, or with intent to, what's this say, alarm any person. Here we go. And discharges firearms or does any other act that is likely to cause any person in the vicinity to fear bodily harm to any person or damage to person. So let's have a look at this bit. That is likely to cause any person in the vicinity to fear bodily harm. Okay? Now, how do we establish, in order for this complaint to apply, and in order for, in this case, what I've done here, you can see we've got a summons, and this summons the corporations. In this case, we had 3 corporations and a landowner, and each one of them had an individual summons. We had to convince a justice of the peace, and let's have a read of this. A complaint has been made before me, and this is the justice of the peace, and it has been substantiated to my satisfaction that on the 27th of October 2015 in the state of Queensland, you threatened to assault or do, and there you go, and the complainant is in fear of you. And there it is, folks. This is a Justice of the Peace under the Justices Act who has issued a summons to force these guys to come to court to answer a complaint in a quasi-criminal jurisdiction. Okay, do you understand that? All right. So, where do we go from here? Okay, so, what you need, folks, is this. And excuse my... Okay, I'm trying to get this sorted, sorry. So, what do you need? Okay? Well, what do we need as a lawyer? We need some evidence to show that you have a fear, that this threatening and violence, that you're in fear that this thing is going to harm you. What do we need from, what do I need in order to give you legal advice to assist you? What we need is a medical opinion. Now I'm going to show you an actual redacted medical opinion, and I think it's going to surprise you as to what doctors actually write. Okay? Now this is one here. And here you go here, this is a medical opinion. Okay? And this one was done on the 24th, this was done in 2018. Now this one here was one that I used.
Okay.
To stop the 5G for sorry. So let's have a look at what the doctor says here. This is a medical doctor. It's come to my attention that a mobile phone company, in this case it was TPG, proposes to erect a new mobile phone small cell facility on an existing power pole, and this is where they're talking about. This home is a residence of a doctor. This is another doctor. And this doctor is literally concerned, so he engaged an expert doctor and myself to assist in stopping this. And you can see that's his wife there and their 3 children. The small cell radio emitting facility will be a mere 4 metres from the main bedroom, also 4 metres from the 17-year-old son's bedroom, and it goes on, you can see here. Okay? Then they talk about various things, but here it says here the doctor, in consultation with the doctors, with the parents, they're extremely anxious that the erection of this RF emitting device so close to where their daughter plays may jeopardise their health. This is causing profound worry and emotional distress on the part of the parents for the safety of their children, of their daughter, etc. Okay? With the proposed facility being so close to the family home. Now I'm going to open up a bit more. I share Dr. and this concern about the risk to their children being so closely exposed to EMR emissions for prolonged periods of time, and the wide spectrum of potential health risks from fatigue, headaches, nervousness, sleep disorders, disturbances, to more sinister illnesses like autism and cancer. The concerns of Dr. and this is in my professional opinion, is justified and appropriate. They are both professionals. Dr. such and such, being a urological surgeon and in possession of a radiation user licence, there it is, issued by the Environmental Protection Authority of New South Wales. Now that particular doctor is acutely aware of the harmful effects, this is the client, the patient, of RF thermal radiation, it goes on, okay, talks about tissue, cancerous tissue, etc. And this doctor's concerned, so that's why he's engaged this specialist to write this report. Then we see the other one, the other party, is a radiation scientist and is employed as a radiation safety officer. This is the wife. She has postgraduate studies in magnetic resonance, etc. And she works under a daily basis on the guidance, etc. You can see this under a panzer. And she talks about everything and she diagnoses and treats, works out the MRI in regards to life-threatening cancers. And she's responsible for the MRI, etc. And she understands how it hurts nerve and tissue, etc., and the pain management, etc. And she's witnessed the emotional impact of radiotherapy and its destructive potential. See that? On patients and their families. Now, so these are professional people who are really concerned that they're going to be harmed by electromagnetic radiation. Okay? So it says here that doctors are fully aware from their extensive knowledge and experience working with RF thermal, non-thermal radiation that the potential risk from the base station is not of a thermal nature. And the problem with the base station is it is emitting radio frequency 24 hours a day, and the family be exposed continuously in the same position while they sleep for 8 to 10 hours every night, as well as intermittent exposures throughout the day. And there it goes. And the base station is only going to be a few metres away from the doors from the children. Now, I'm now going to show you the conclusion. It is my professional opinion that placing the proposed mobile phone small cell facility on the power pole, etc., places the family of Dr. such and such and his partner and their 3 children at risk of an array of health hazards due to the immediate proximity of the EMF, etc. Okay? It says here the fact that the bedrooms are metres away from the device means that they'll sustain prolonged exposure repeatedly, which could further aggravate any potential health risks. I strongly recommend the proposed location base station be moved at least 500 metres away from this family to minimise potential health effects. Okay, so what that does is, that's just one report. Okay? Now I'm going to show you another one which is even better. Okay? And then I'm going to explain how this all works. Okay, now this is a medical opinion here. Now I'm going to read this. I'm going to show you what it says here. My conclusion is that you and your family and the residents in very close proximity to the proposed wireless mobile base station proposed to be erected adjacent to are at an extreme risk of harm to your health due to the immediate proximity to the proposed base station to your residents. This particular doctor is saying this. There is no obvious protection offered or described within the standard. Now he's referring to the Panzer standard here, folks, which occurs, and he goes into extreme detail in this particular advice. As a medical professional, it gives me no confidence at all. Now these are just extracts. This is what you're actually looking at, is my actual advice. You can see here, I've done what's called an advice. It's a 24-page document explaining the law, etc. And this is some extracts that I've used. Now this one I've only done just recently. You can see here, I did it on the 17th of May. And council will listen to this and I'll explain it. And they've already started the process rolling, so it does work, folks. Okay, so you can see here that he's saying that there's been no confidence at all that children living in the vicinity of the small cell facility are protected when no short-term or long-term research has provided proof safety from harm up to etc. And I don't understand all this personally, but this is what he's working out for us. Furthermore, there is no advice forthcoming from a Panzer as to any potential risks to babies, children or pregnant mothers with regard to proximity to RF EMR emitting devices or length of exposure. The inference from the lack of any qualifying advice from the Panzer infers that permanent exposure, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even having RF EMR devices in contact with one's body or head is safe. In spite of RF equipment working within their Panzer standard exposure, being under this whatever, it is in my opinion that you are not protected by the very standard that is designed to protect all Australian citizens and is considered to have no harmful effects on health. Refers to the blind issue report, there it is, folks. It talks about the benchmarks for adults, and it gives us the very, very low reading that you need in the microwatts per metre square. You can see it here, very, very low, and you'll find that the Panzer guidelines do not address that at all. In fact, he actually says here that the Panzer standard is 15,166 times higher than this. That's recommended in the bioinitiative report by 20,000 studies on the health effects of electromagnetic radiation. You can see he talks about it here, thousands of research papers, etc. I would not recommend that you and your family, oh, oops, I shouldn't have put But there, see that? Whoops, see that? Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so here you can see now he talks about the Rossetti Institute. Now, this here is a very interesting one. This particular study is very recent, 2018. Now I'm going to show you folks, so to understand this. The Rossetti Institute was done in 2018. This is the pairs of guidelines here, this is the standard, and this was produced in 2002. So this one, you can see it here, okay? Very old standard compared to this particular one here, okay? And this one here published a large long-term study of rats exposed to radio frequency from preterm to death. There was a substantial significant increased risk of malignant melanomas of the heart. There was also an increased instance of glial tumours, malignant brain tumours in female rats. But it was not statistically significant. But what was statistically significant was the increase of malignant melanomas of the heart. You see it there? Now, a lot of people with EHS, or electromagnetic hypersensitivity, or electromagnetic hypersensitivity syndrome, whichever way you want to call it, or people that are affected by radiation sickness, would have palpitations of the heart. That sort of explains a little bit there. You can see it there, and it talks about Falcone. Now, I'm going to explain this case, and you'll see it's backed up here by another one, which is a 2009 publication. These are all peer-reviewed, which basically means they're being published into medical journals, and their colleagues have accepted this as being fact. Okay? Now, he basically did some research and said that brain cancer commented on this particular institute paper, and you'll see here we conclude that there is clear evidence that RF radiation is a human carcinogen causing melanoma, which is brain cancer, folks, and vesicular schwannoma, which is acoustic neuroma, which is a cancer in the ear, and there is some evidence of an increased risk of developing thyroid cancer, and clear evidence that RF radiation is a multi-site carcinogen based on the preamble to the IARC, which is written by, and the IARC monographs, that it should be classified as carcinogenic to humans. Now, it currently is classed by IARC, which is an organisation from the WHO, the World Health Organisation, that says that it's a possible to be classed carcinogenic. Okay. Now, what's really interesting about this institute document is that a lot of people aren't listening to this as far as other various scientists around the world, but there are a lot of scientists that are. The Rossetti Institute, in the 80s, actually produced and I'll just explain this to you. In the 80s, and you've probably heard of benzene before, well, benzene, the Rossetti Institute actually said that this stuff causes cancer, and no one listened to them in the 80s. And everyone poo-pooed them and said, oh, look, your institute, you don't know what you're talking about. But guess what? They were right. And we now know, and it's now regarded as a carcinogen. It's the stuff that they put as nanotube they put into petrol, which replaced lead. And that institute is highly regarded around the world. Okay? Now, where do we go from here? So as I said here, my conclusion is this, that you and your family, etc., are at an extreme risk of harm. And what I'm saying is this, folks, if you're presented with a document by a doctor that says that this is going to harm you, you have basically got evidence, well, how you react to that, and that's really up to you. But if you've got a genuine fear that you think that this thing's going to harm you, that is enough to enact the Peace and Good Behaviour Act and get an order put against and to apply for one anyway. Okay? So that's what that's about. Now, what was that, sorry? I can't hear you, sorry.
Paul, he's talking to you.
Sorry?
Hey, Ray. Sorry, what was the question?
Yes? Was there a question?
You're right. I was flying so much, so I was completely not present. I do apologise. I do have some questions for you, though.
Okay, I haven't finished, but I can do it now if you like.
No, you go. Sorry, I apologise.
You finish up.
Keep going, Ray.
Keep going, Ray.
Okay, I'll keep going. Okay, thank you, folks. Okay, so that's what I'm going to explain now. Now, we're going to talk about a panzer now. Okay, so as you can understand where a panzer comes into this, and why a doctor's advice is very important, and even a panzer advises it. Okay, and I'm going to show you, this is the, remember I showed you, this is the document that everyone talks about. It's called the panzer guidelines, or the standard. That's it there, you can see it right there, folks. Okay, it's the, there it is there. Now I'm going to read the foreword, which is the very first pages, and I want you to understand this very clearly. And this is written by John Loy, who was the CEO of the Panzer at the time in 2002. Now, look at this particular bit here. It is recognised that the standard does not operate in isolation from the legal framework within Australia. Relevant Australian occupational, health, safety and environmental laws provide obligation on employers and the designers, manufacturers and suppliers of plant or equipment to ensure that their activities or their plant and equipment do not represent, here it is folks, a risk to the health and safety of their employees or third parties, that's us, who may be affected by them. In effect, such laws require relevant parties to continually assess and improve the safety and health impact of their activities. This is the standard, folks. The telcos, if they're aware of a risk to health, what are they supposed to do, folks? There it is, okay? That's the guidelines, that's the standard. Now, let's go to my advice now that I usually put together. And I'll just find it. Here it is here. So this is my advice, and you can see I've redacted a few things. Now, in this case, I'm just going to read this through so that it sort of explains a little bit to you. You instruct that such and such a corporation and its agents, including but not limited to whoever these people are, propose to install a 4G, but this is technically a 5G backup really, an existing utility pole. We all know this is a small cell facility, and it goes here, okay? Now we talk about, and it goes in, that you instruct that you are fearful that electromagnetic radiation emissions from the facility will cause harm and or discomfort to you, your husband, your children who live nearby, etc. You provide documents in the form of a medical practitioner's report which provides medical opinion that your family face. Here it is, folks. Extreme risk of harm if exposed to EMR emissions from the proposed facility. You've also provided a building biology report as to the current ambient EMR emissions, okay, affecting your residents. You've instructed, you've been advised by a medical practitioner that EMR emissions from the facility will pose an extreme risk, which we just talked about. You advise that they've invited members of the public to submit any concerns regarding the facility by close of business, etc., and it goes on. Now, we talk about their panzer, and I'm just going to do, in regards to my advice, in regards to a panzer, which I'm going to talk about now. Now, while I'm doing this, I'll just get the document and speak on, put paperwork everywhere here. First of all, I'm going to show you a document which you can find quite easily on the internet, and it's called a disclaimer. And there it is, there's the panzer. And you get it on, and just type up a panzer disclaimer, and you'll come up with this. Now let's have a read of this, folks. It's provision of education and research information only. Now this includes the standard, by the way, because the standard is in their website, all right? This website is presented by Panzer for the purpose of disseminating regulatory information and information on radiation and health free of charge for the benefit of the public. This website is not a substitute for independent professional advice, and nothing contained in this site is intended to be used as medical advice. It is not intended to be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, nor should it be used for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for your own health professional's advice. It is not a substitute for your own health professional's advice. A Panzer does not accept any liability for any injury, loss or damage incurred by user reliance on the information. This is the bit here, folks. Now, what does our PANSA actually advise? Now, the PANSA actually advise, and you can see this, there's actually an advice. Oops, I'll just bear with me, folks. There's actually an advice that our PANSA have actually put out, and I'll just find it for you. Sorry, I did have all this paperwork. I had it sitting right here somewhere, and I just can't seem to find it. But there is an advice that says that here we go. I found it. Here we go. I put it in my advice. Here it is. There's a PANSA published a fact sheet, which is dated the June 2015, headed Electromagnetic Sensitivity. There it is. Okay. In that fact sheet, the PANSA advised the following. On the basis of current scientific information, there is no established evidence that EHS is caused by EMF at low levels below exposure guidelines. A PANSA acknowledges that the health symptoms experienced by the affected individuals are real. That's a bit strange. Yeah. And can be a disabling problem. Oh, okay. And advise those affected to seek medical advice from a qualified medical specialist. There it is. So PANSA are advising people to seek medical advice. And folks, that's exactly what I've done. Okay? So here's that. So where do we go from there? So that's a PANSA. Now, the other thing about a PANSA, and I want you to understand this, and that there's going to be something really interesting here. Now, I'm going to read this to you, and this is a supporting document in the PANSA website. Okay? Now, I've said it here. The PANSA on its website has provided a supporting paper to complement the PANSA standard to assist with occupational health and safety practices for those who are exposed to EMR in the workplace. And you'll see I've given a number 3. The documents, there it is. It's a paper describing the management of overexposures to electromagnetic fields, specifically the flow chart, etc. It's a paper by Bruce Hockey and Gobbo, you can see it there, and it's called Medical Aspects of Overexposures to Electromagnetic Fields. And there it is, and it was published in the, there it is, OHS, it's published, peer reviewed, there it is, okay? This is actually provided as a supporting document to this document, folks, which is the PANSA standard. So let's have a look at this report from Dr. Bruce Hockey. Okay, now, so I've extracted all this business here, so you'll see. The 2009 ICNIRP standard limits the induced in situ electric field to 0.1 volts per metre at 50 hertz, termed the basic restriction. Okay? Now let's go back. If I can get, computer's not working, sorry, I won't go to that. Here we go. Let's go back to the environmental E&E report. And let's have a look at the, what does it say here, folks? Electric field. Here we go. What have we got here? Okay, now let's have a look at this. We'll keep going. And he calls it a basic restriction. Anyway, we'll keep going. Electromagnetic fields are caused by the induction of Volsky gradients, it goes on. And it has it can cause excision of nerve, muscle and cardiac tissue. There is a very wide range of excitability, ranging from alteration of synapse activity in the brain. Here it is, at 0.75 volts per metre peak. So you have a synapse activity in the brain at that voltage there, okay? You then get a simulation of this at 6.1 volts, and at 12 volts per metre peak, it can affect your cardiac muscle. And these are just extracts from that particular paper. And here, I'll show you the actual document. This is it here, okay? That's the document that I've got it from. Okay, so I haven't made it up. Okay, so let's go through it. Cardiac tissue is excitable at relatively high exposure levels at 12 volts per metre peak. It may be stimulated to cause arrhythmias, which may be life-threatening. There it is. Life-threatening. Well, that's a bit of a scare. That's a bit of a worry. I'm just going to put my batteries. My battery's about to die, folks. There we go. Now, here we go. My God, this requires emergency medical treatment. While the energy from EMF is not cumulative in the body, unlike a toxin such as lead. Well, guess what, folks? It's a possible class 2B carcinogen, which has exactly the same carcinogenic properties as lead. That is what's been established now since this report came out. It's likely that the more prolonged or recurrent and overexposure, the more likely there are to be health effects. There is no specific test for EMF overexposure or so-called EMF poisoning. Treatment is based on the symptoms and the findings and the examination. There is no antidote. There it is, for EMF poisoning. No antidote. Okay? If there's been an overexposure, this needs to be discussed with the patient and their concerns explored. Persistent headaches, diarrhea may be treated with blah, 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 and it goes on. So what I'm trying to say is, and it says here, talks about some various treatment that can be done, successfully determined by the confidence the patient has in the doctor. Not with the guidelines, not with the standards, not with anything else, folks. It's to do with the doctor, which is determined by the doctor showing an understanding about EMF. Alright? Now I'm going to tell you something else about Dr. Hocking. Dr. Hocking also had an early paper that was peer-reviewed and published in the Australian Medical Journal. In this particular study, he found a correlation between childhood leukemia and the radiation from 3 television broadcast towers in Sydney. He compared the incidence of and mortality rates from cancer in people living in 9 municipalities in northern Sydney from 1972 to 1990, and he found that in the areas closest to the towers, there was increased incidence and mortality from childhood lymphatic leukemia. We go to 4. There it is, that's the reference. It was published in the Australian Medical Journal, folks, in 1996. Okay? He then did a follow-up study. He analysed the survival rates for childhood leukemia in patients diagnosed between 1972 and 1993. He found that children living closest to the TV towers had double the mortality rate of those living further away. For those living closest to the towers, 55% survived for 5 years, etc. This is a gentleman who's provided a supporting document to the APANSA guidelines. He's actually part of APANSA. He used to be, he's done some really good work, and a lot of people really admire this work that Dr. Bruce Hocking has done around the world. So I guess what it is, folks, is that if an emitter or a council or somebody is provided with a medical opinion in that vein, and also provided attached with that is a legal advice and outlining the law to it, you've actually put them on notice, and in effect, it's up to them as to whether or not they heed medical advice or they heed the APANSA standards. And which way they opt to choose, it's really up to them. And that's how the dice is rolled in this particular case. I'm going to show you that there was a case called in Australia called McDonald and Comcare, and this was the very first case that established that there was a thing called electromagnetic hypersensitivity, that it was actually technically nailed under the workers' compensation type laws. Now, in that case, Dr. Hocking was actually working for the government and appeared against Dr. McDonald, who was seeking compensation in the tribunal. There was another doctor called Dr. Cooper, and Dr. Cooper was Dr. McDonald's his expert. Now, Dr. McDonald won the case, and he was awarded compensation based on his fear, in essence, that he was being exposed to electromagnetic radiation based on the medical report. Okay? Now, what I'm saying is, here are the experts that were applied in that particular case. Here's the expert medical witnesses, okay, Dr. Cooper, Dr. Chu, etc. And here are the experts that we use for Comcare. We've got Dr. Bruce Hocking, and these are all the people working for the government, and there's a guy called Dr. Vitus Anderson. He's not an actual medical doctor. This particular gentleman here appeared at the 5G meeting that we had with TPG in Dundas Street in Coogee in Randwick, and he was faced by a barrage of about 14 medical doctors on my side to stop and to make our grievances known. I hope this has sort of given everybody a bit of an indication of how this sort of thing sort of works. So how it works is like this, folks. It's basically put together, gets, as I said, the steps in a sense to get all the evidence backed up, ready for a lawyer, such as myself or somebody else, to do an advice for you. Get the advice from the lawyer and the advice from a medical practitioner, and then you send that to your counsellors in your council. You send it to all the emitters that are involved in this thing, the owners, the directors, etc., and put them on notice that that this stuff's going to harm. It's in this particular case, it's extreme risk of harm. And that's how it works, folks. Now, I've got heaps to tell you, but I think that might sort of do it at this stage. Any questions, I guess?
Yeah, coming. Coming.
What's that, sorry?
Yeah, I was getting outside Max.
There he is. He's back.
That's all right, Max. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we have a question here.
I like to be
All right, just before you go, I'll just show you something. Now, so as you can understand that I'm actually telling you what really happened in Coogee. There was basically I got the medical opinion from doctor. I just happened to have Dr. Cooper, who was the guy from the Don Comcare case. I then got him to do an advice for the residents, and then as you can see for the doctors. And we had 8 medical doctors on that street, and we also had 2 lawyers, and they obviously engaged in my services and Dr. Cooper's. And what we did is we turned up and organised did a bit of lobbying behind the scenes, obviously. Provided a legal advice attached with the doctor's advice as well. That was issued to all the councillors, and all we were doing was asking for the telco to remove the don't put the thing in front of this poor people's house on that street, move it somewhere else. I'm going to show you now some documents here. Okay. Now this is from the Randwick City Council themselves. You can see it here. Okay. And this is their minutes from their. It says here. Last year, a consultation was held between the community and TPG to discuss concerns around the company's small cell tower rollout in the community. TPG initially planned to install a small cell tower at Dundas Street, Coogee. However, at the community consultation, a proposed less densely populated alternative site at Glenhelm Park was suggested. TPG agreed to move the infrastructure. Well, not actually at the meeting, but they did after that. Then the very next day, the council in a meeting on Tuesday the 16th of October resolved the proposed rollout came at a time when international research reported the link between cell tower radiation and the development of cancer. Accordingly, council called on the federal government to intervene and suspend the rollout, pending a review of the relevance of the international findings to the safety of residents in urban Australia. However, on the 29th of January, which wasn't not that long after Christmas, made a company announcement that it will cease the rollout of its mobile network altogether, folks. There it is. Because of this, TPG no longer intends to proceed with any small cell tower installations or community consultation, Glenhelm Park, or other locations. There it is. And here it is, folks. This is a letter from TPG Research. Okay, you may be aware, this was sent to the council, that on 29th of January, TPG made a company announcement that it would cease the rollout of its mobile network. Accordingly, I'm in writing to advise you that TPG does not intend to proceed such a proposed alternative small cell facility, etc. Prior to the company announcement, TPG communicated a decision to propose this alternative site, recommended by the community, etc. TPG now intends to proceed neither location as proposed. Look at this. TPG has regretted the anxiety that some people have felt, and good on TPG, I take my hat off to them, about our small cells, and have endeavoured to give residents good reliable information from public health authorities about the safety and regulation of radiation sickness, radiation including small cells. We will continue to liaise with residents as required to give them greater peace of mind and ease their concerns. And that was written by none other than a big TPG that technically they had already installed 900 small cell facilities on existing power poles in Australia. They were proposing to install another 1,600 and they got rid of the whole lot. So what I'm trying to say here, folks, and I also did Wilson's Creek, you probably heard of that, which was a Telstra tower. Basically what happened there, that was the difference between Wilson's Creek and TPG. TPG didn't have to get development approval, so we had to convince council that this was a problem. Wilson's Creek was the same thing, but in that case it was a development approval, and we worked on what was called the precautionary principle. Now, how the precautionary principle works is like this, folks, is that if there is any scientific uncertainty as to that health risk, then you have to err on caution. And that is what precautionary principles are all about. And you'll find the precautionary principle is embedded in just about all legislation in the country. Okay? And so in effect, how I stopped Wilson's Creek was using the precautionary principle approach. And I also used it to stop TPG, in essence, okay? So, but that's another area of law. But I guess in essence, and I haven't got time to explain all that to you tonight, but I think that gives you a bit of an background. Now, I'm going to show you something else that you're not aware of, okay? Now,
you have an exhibit for us. I know you've got. I've read that you've got an impressive wig collection, right?
What's that, sorry?
I've heard that you've got an impressive wig collection.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm actually in my office. I'm downstairs in my my conference room. Yeah. But upstairs, I can show it to you. I'm very proud of it. I've got the wig that was worn by a gentleman called Sir Thomas Strangman, and he was the gentleman who prosecuted Mahatma Gandhi in India in the Great Trial of 1922. So I've actually got that wig. Now, the beautiful thing about Mahatma and Sir Thomas Strangman was that Sir Thomas Strangman and Mahatma Gandhi became very close friends, and Mahatma Gandhi was actually not a pacifist at the time. He actually was imprisoned for 6 years for incitement of violence, and he struck up a friendship with Sir Thomas Strangman, and during that process, Mahatma changed his ideas and became a pacifist, and he credited a lot of it to his relationship with Sir Thomas Strangman. So I've got his wig.
Amazing, amazing. So Raymond, we've got about 15 minutes left, and we've got a lot of questions we need to get through quickly as well.
Right, well, let's just stop there. Let's just go for it.
Okay, so the first, I've got a gentleman that's going to ask a question. The first question, though, is that someone wants to ask is, does it need to be done on a tower-by-tower basis, or can it be done completely within a region or a council jurisdiction?
Okay, well, TPG, we did it, basically what we got was the Coogie's residents, they formed an association, and basically medical advice and legal advice was given to them as an association, as a group. And I find that that's probably more effective is to set up various places like UCSFR, is Wilson's Creek. They're the Wilson's Creek people. They set up their association with the UCSFR. In West Australia, I've got groups setting up over there, Northern Territory, I've got them everywhere, all over the country, setting up their own little independent organisations and groups. What's been happening, I've been doing this for nearly 7 years now, and I've had to start off just doing spot fires, which is one little tower here and one little smart meter over there, or whatever it might be. So I've been doing little, all over the place. And I'm starting to realise that the trick is to get everybody together. The more people that can go and see their doctors and get these, please doctors, this stuff's safe. I've given you some of the tools that you can provide to your doctor, provide initiative, etc. And that may assist. So yes, I think you can do it either way. You can do it as an individual, but it's a lot cheaper legally, because you understand you've got to pay for a medical opinion, and a medical opinion is not cheap. You're looking at around between the $2,500 to nearly $5,000 mark for a medical opinion. I've been doing a lot of this pro bono, so I haven't really been charged anything really at all, except to cover my costs. But a normal legal advice, you're probably looking at something around, say, the $3,000 to $5,000 mark as a rule.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Ray. We've got the next question for you.
I like to be a little bit the devil's advocate here, and ask you what would happen if the defendant plays in such a case a silly bugger and says, "Oh look, we never had."
Sorry, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I'm afraid. Sorry.
You never had any criminal intention. I like to play a little bit here the devil's advocate. What will happen if the defendant in such a case would used to be a little bit of a silly bugger and say, "Oh look, we never had any."
I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry. I can't hear a word you're saying. I don't understand. I'm sorry. If you can speak a little bit clearer.
What would happen if the defendant in your case would play the silly bugger and just say simply, "Oh, we never had any criminal intentions to install all the towers, and we just wanted to do the towers that people have a better communication and have a cheaper communication, and there is no proof that we have known about all the harmful things, and we know you explained all the harmful things, what these towers do, but the other question is, can we prove that the other side has known about it? Because they will use it as a defense.
Yeah, the way to prove it, I can answer your question quite easily. The way to prove it is quite simply, I give them, when you provide them with a legal advice, which explains the law and their liability. It explains the criminal liability and the civil liability. It explains it all in this advice, plus a medical opinion. They can't say they're not aware of it. And how it works is if they once they're given the advice, okay, that's how it starts. That's when the intention commences. So if they literally, now this is the best way to explain it. I'll try and explain this as quickly as I can, and I'll show you in an advice thing. Basically, I'll read this to you. Once they've given an opinion, now look at this is it. On the 27th of October, I became extremely frightened and left in dismay, fear and alarm due to the joint enterprise failing to heed my warning notice, and thereafter causing to publish an announcement in the Radio Frequency National Site Archive, putting the community and myself on notice that the installation facility will proceed. That simple act, in essence, has caused my client to become frightened and alarmed when they received the email from my neighbour stating that I advise, I've just noticed the sole tradesman's been busy building the line in the basement room, etc. What it is that once you put them on notice that this stuff's going to harm, and then after they've had that notice, they then proceed with the facility, or they start making any action to build it or to show that they're going to proceed, it shows that they're clearly threatening, and they know it's going to harm you, they're clearly going ahead with it, and that constitutes a threat. Okay? If that's the intention that you're talking about. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anyone else?
Paul?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah, I got a question here. Right, it's just some questions came through on the live stream. So it said that Elon Musk has already put 60 to 90 satellites into space for 5G, and he plans to
Bring that up.
yeah,
Yes, keep going.
and then he plans to put 20,000 into space. Is there a strategy to fight this? And thousands of satellites are beaming EMR at the planet from space. What's the strategy?
Okay. I already know the answer. Okay, and I've been looking at it and been working on it. It's quite a simple process. The same thing can apply to space. Okay. Now, when a broadcaster emits a beam from the satellite into Australia, they have to be licensed under ACMA, which is the Australian Communication Media Authority. So they have to have a broadband, I have a license to emit a signal. So therefore, what that means is that their license has to be through an Australian company, etc. And we've got them, and I can show you the document. I've got all the answers here, folks. That's a little bit this way. Here it is. Okay. We have space systems regulation. This is ACMA, as you can see here, from the Australian government. And basically, what it is that in space, that they have to be here, it says here, getting the right license to operate and communicate with the satellite service depends on how it is to be used in the space network. Okay, it goes on here, and it talks about that technically a radio communications license may be issued to a satellite operator, service provider. Now, what that means, folks, is that yes, Mr. Musk can put out his thousands of satellites, so I understand he's putting out 20,000 of them. I think he's already put out about 90, I think, already. They're about the size of the cars, and they are going to emit electromagnetic radiation from those devices, but he still has to get a broadcast license in Australia, which brings it into the Australian jurisdiction, and yes, we can attack, or basically litigate and sort of convince him to back off. Okay? Does that make sense?
Okay, one last question.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you. Can you hear me, Ray?
I do have something very quick too. This is being used around the world as the Telecommunications Act, which is the American version. You've probably heard about Section 704, saying that you can't rely on health effects and all that sort of stuff. Remember that one? I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but the US has this one. Now, you'll see it here. This is it here. This is the Telecommunications Act. This is the American one. And if we go through it, basically how it works is it says here that no state or local government may regulate the placement, construction, etc. And it talks about environmental effects on the basis of environmental effects. And they're sort of basically saying that's to do with health. Okay? Now, what I'm saying is this. The key to enforcing, this is a case that was used, you can see it here. And one thing that applies in the US, it talks about the health effects. If you have a look here, it talks about you need to have more than a mere scintilla of evidence. We're talking about substantial evidence. Which is exactly what we're doing here in Australia with what I'm doing here, is I'm getting substantial evidence to use that, and it's not a scintilla. I'm using expert evidence to use it. And basically it says that such relevant evidence as reasonable mind might accept as adequate to support a conclusion. Now, in the United States, if I can find it, they have to use the precautionary principle, which is the same one that we use in Australia. And here it is here. I think it says here, it talks about, here it is, it says unscientific or irrational fears may cause undesirable health effects. Basically what this is saying is that you need to have substantial evidence in order to back up, to basically attack this Section 704 provision. And the other thing is that can't find it, it's in here somewhere, where it talks about the same process that we're applying in Australia, which is the precautionary principle. So it's the precautionary principle. Not only that, the beautiful thing about what I'm doing is the criminal code, and that's not environmental. It's got nothing to do with health.
Ray, we've got, we've got time for one last question. Christian's got a question for you, please.
Thanks, Ray. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yes.
Ray, I've got a little bit of an insider in the telco industry. Spoke to an engineer in Optus, and You were saying in relation to some of the bigger housing developments that are opening up, more likely in the Sunshine Coast, where there's 20, 30,000 people coming, and they've screwed up the NBN, they've screwed up 3G, they've screwed up 4G towers, and they're trying to fast track the small cell 5G. They're lobbying the federal government to bypass local laws in relation to using infrastructure. Now, in relation to what you've told us, is that just a case of then sort of going through the local member, the MP, or the communications minister? Where does that stand? I know that this is just an inside track.
Yeah, well, okay, well, I guess what it is of course, you've got to, I guess it's all about education. It's educating your local government members, educate your councillors. The beautiful thing about this is that, yes, there is the Telecommunications Act, which actually, you'll see that what I've done here is I've completely circumvented the ACMA, the APANSA, the Telecommunications Act, and any federal law, because the criminal code is a state code. It's got nothing to do with the federal jurisdiction. Okay? Under constitutional law, the Australian government can only legislate in certain provisions. Okay? It cannot encroach on a state in regards to its criminal code. So, in a sense, I've removed that problem. Okay? Now, as far as your what's currently in the local government acts, for example, is that the council is allowed to abate. So, even if the council approves the development, and they're up there and they've already got the tower up and it's all running, if the council becomes aware of a risk, then they have to, they've got an option. One is to either let it keep going, or two, adhere to what I've been saying and send what's called an abatement notice. So if somebody's creating a nuisance, for example, someone's got too much noise or there's a health risk that's been identified, what happens is simply the council will issue an abatement notice against the telco to say, look, reduce your emissions, it's going to cause harm. That's how it works.
Right, thanks, Ray. So that's time for us. So I just wanted to say to you, Ray, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for your contribution, for your time. We look forward to seeing you in Brisbane at the 5G Health Symposium on the 7th of July. I wanted to thank everyone for contributing tonight, for assisting, for you all for being here. Tune in, join our group for Stop 5G Global. Keep sharing, keep having conversations with people, keep sharing the social media. Have a conversation with the people that have got the stands and the displays. I know Cyril and those guys have still got some stuff for the draw, for the earphones. They're going to be drawing in the next 5 or 10 minutes. So please do that. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for tuning in. We love you. Good night.
Thank you. And good luck. No worries, thank you. Good luck.